Rocky Top Insider instant reaction to Tennessee baseball's 12-1 win over Evansville in the Super Regional Final. Tennessee's headed back to the College World Series for the third time in 4 years. Ryan, nothing short of a dominant win for the Vols today. Xander Sechrist shoved in what will be his final outing in the Lindsey Nelson Stadium, a place where he's pitched several innings over the past 4 years, mostly on a Tuesday, as he'll always remind you.
Yeah.
But Xander Sechrist, very fitting that he pitches a career-long outing, 6 1/3 today to send his team to Omaha. And Tennessee also hit 7 home runs, by the way, as the offense once again teed off on Evansville. But a lot of storylines from today, but the big one, obviously, is that Tennessee's headed back to the College World Series.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we talked about it yesterday, but wrote about it, what a swing game today was going to be, and it feels like 3 trips to Omaha in 4 years that this program is as healthy as any in the country. It feels like they need to go, as Tony Vitello talked about, they need to go do stuff next week there to maybe bolster or claim as the best program in the country, or to have a real legitimate claim of that. But it just incredible consistency, and I think the thing that stood out is that they left no doubt today. In a game where all the pressure was going to be on them, where they very easily could have played tight, error on the first play of the game, fall behind 1-0 in the first inning. They responded back in dominant fashion, and I thought, I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about it later, but on a Tony Vitello press conference, it was very eventful. One of the things that stood out to me when he was talking about how the team handled the day, he said they were very, very confident.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I do want to hit on that Tony presser. I think it was probably, I haven't covered every year of Tony's career, but since I've been, it is the most, I'll use iconic, I use these big words, but just meaningful segment of a Tony Vitello presser is him talking about the definition of success and all that. We'll get that into a second. First, I just want to talk about Xander Sechrist.
The game.
Of course, yeah. Xander Sechrist, as I said, 6 1/3. I mean, he's been arguably Tennessee's best starter of the last month, and I don't think you can really dispute that. But today, just pitching with conviction once again, allowing 0 earned runs. The one run he did allow was unearned. I mean, Xander Sechrist, if he continues pitching this way, like I've said before, it elevates Tennessee's ceiling so much higher.
Yeah, no, he was fantastic. And, Tony often talks about, or you hear him talk about pitchers when they pitch well, about their misses being good. And that's what stuck out early. It didn't feel like Xander missed any pitch badly. It felt like he just barely missed his spots. He didn't walk a single batter today. It didn't feel like there were that many 3-ball counts. He didn't hit a single batter, no free bases. He was just super effective in the strike zone. Obviously, we talked about it, the error that they give up in the first inning does lead to a run. But even then, I felt like that was a big defining moment, at least looking back in the game. It's still 1st and 3rd, 2 outs. Cal McGinnis, who'd been as good as any hitter all weekends up at the plate. It feels like things get more dicey for Tennessee if that lead gets to more than 1. He gets out of it there, another inning, when an error, I guess, by Christian Moore trying to catch a double play turn.
Yeah.
And then, of course, 3 straight starts now where he's gotten struck by a ball in the thigh. This time he just immediately waves away to trainer. So bases loaded, 2 outs. Another inning he should have been out of, he got out of. I mean, he was so good, and is pitching at a really, really high level right now.
Yeah, pretty emotional coming off the mound when he stranded the bases loaded there, taking the gum out, throwing it, just pumping himself up. And you talk about Xander, his outing today, all the ground balls that were base hits early on.
Yeah.
It was a very unlucky start to the game for him, having to throw 20 pitches in the first inning. And yet, you look at the score sheet and what he's able to do, throwing over 100 pitches, like I said, 0 earned runs. It's just amazing how efficient he's been. Yeah,
no doubt. That's a good point, because even a lot of the hits he gave up early were not hit that hard. There was 2 infield singles. One of them is one Blake Burke probably should have let Christian Moore get. He tried to get it, and it was a guy pretty fast coming up the line, so they weren't able to make the play. But you're right, he was just super, super effective in a stat that I may be off a little bit. And it is a little misleading stat because of how many midweek games he's had.
Okay. But
in Xander Sechrist's first 39 starts at Tennessee, he went 6+ innings 1 time. In his last 4 starts, he's done it 3 times. The other one, he went 5 1/3 or 4 2/3 last week, and
4 2.
4 2/3 last week, and was good, and the defense behind him was once again bad. So he's figured some things out, and is pitching at a really, really high level. And as we'll continue to talk about more this week, the pitching is the question of continuing to keep finding enough pitching to make a deep run in Omaha, and that's a really encouraging sign.
Undoubtedly no longer an opener. You can't use that word about Xander.
No doubt.
No way anymore. He's a starter for this team, and a really good one at that. Let's talk about the offense. 7 home runs, tying a single-game record for the program, setting a postseason single-game record with 7 dingers tonight. And it came from a lot of people. 2 from Dalton Bargo, which is where I want to start. Gets the DH nod. First time he's seen action this weekend. And Dalton Bargo made a statement tonight, hitting 2 home runs.
Yeah, he did. He was It was the best DH performance we've seen in a long time. I mean, I'm trying to think if there's anything that even comes close. Probably the best all season. We talk about hitting 2 home runs, but he jump-started. I guess it was the second of the back-to-back home runs in the second inning. That felt like the big inning. Tennessee scores 4 to take the lead, and then he has another one later in the game opposite field. And it always felt like he was the most talented hitter of the group of DHs. And, I mean, he hit really good early in the season. Even in SEC play, Billy Amick had that 2-week stretch where he was out, and Dalton Bargo was playing third base. He was really, really good. There was a 4-game stretch in all SEC play. He didn't start in the midweek. From the Georgia series to the Auburn series, he hit 4 home runs in 4 games. And he hadn't hit a home run since. So for him to hit 2, he's now at 8 at the year. Feels like a really good sign. He's an Omaha native. He talked about it after the game. He came to Tennessee to go to Omaha. That's what he wanted to do.
That was a good line.
And he's going back home.
Yeah, he's going back home for sure. And you talk about Dalton Bargo. This is a guy that Tony Vitello said repeatedly is one of Tennessee's best 9 hitters.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Cannon People situation where the talent's there, the production just wasn't there, maybe even to a higher extent. But now it shows tonight, and Dalton Bargo's riding into the College World Series at the highest he's been all season long. Semo also hit 2. Billy hit 1. Stark hit 1. He's now at 10.
Yep.
That's 8 Tennessee players
and now
at 10.
Bargo's all of a sudden at 8. It felt like nobody else could get there. Now Bargo's at 8, and if he starts getting a lot of starts, obviously it's going to be hard. Omaha's a big ballpark. 2 home runs is not something easy to do, but it's not out of the question.
Yeah. But I just think it was overall good for this Tennessee offense to bounce back from yesterday and to face some of their better arms. I know Harris or Deverman didn't pitch for their top 2, but they brought out Jacob Meyer again, which is surprising. Even Nick Smith, who did well against them yesterday. So some of the better bullpen arms from Evansville tonight, they were able to really have success against and bounce back.
Yeah, no doubt. 2 at-bats I want to talk about. 1, Christian Moore to lead off the game immediately, or I guess lead off the bottom half of the first inning, immediately tied the game back up.
With a absolute laser over the porches.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, I guess on Friday, longest home runs we've seen at Tennessee. That wasn't the longest. I think that was the hardest hit ball.
115, right?
115. I mean, that thing, again, was a line drive and went right over the third deck of porches. I mean, someone tried to catch that? I don't know. Maybe someone did. I'll have to check the tape. Their hand's going to be in trouble. I mean, that thing was unbelievable. And then, I guess, moving forward to the other bat, the guy right behind him in the order, Blake Burke, Wes Carroll, is that right?
Yeah, their coach?
Yes. He talked about it on Friday night that the key with Tennessee's offense is the home runs, keep them solo home runs. Well, Tennessee proceeded to hit, I think their next 8 home runs were solo home runs. And most of their runs were coming via home run. Yeah. I guess a couple otherwise. Well, with Tennessee up, I guess it would have been 3-1 in the second inning. Blake Burke, 2-strike approach, slaps one down the left field line for an RBI double. Just scored 1, but put second and third. Billy Amick grounded out for an RBI. To me, that felt like a big at-bat just to add more runs, to do a little something without it being other than solo home runs. And Blake Burke, I know he did hit 2 home runs this weekend, so it's going to be silly to talk about him doing stuff other than home runs. I thought he was maybe, I don't know if underrated. People probably are talking about him, but his weekend I thought was really, really good, and it flew under the radar. And it was what we've talked about all season of what's been different with him. Consistent at-bats, going the other way. Good approach, working competitive at bats, and that was a great example of just that.
Well, yeah, one of the very few balls to not hit a homer tonight. Went 4 or 5 at the plate though, and his only out was hit to the warning track over here in left field at the end of the game. So Blake Burke was arguably Tennessee's best hitter tonight, and you talk about that. I was thinking to myself when Tennessee had those 3 solo homers, shades of yesterday. Can Tennessee do something different offensively after that? And Blake Burke was able to really initiate that. All right, let's move on to some big picture stuff. I do want to bring back up what Tony said. It's really, and we'll have it up on RTI YouTube, on our website, full opening statement just by itself because I think it needs to have its own recognition. But really just talking about the definition of success. He took, not offense, but he didn't like a question yesterday talking about how if Tennessee loses this game, it's another unsuccessful season like 2 years ago when they were number 1 seed, lost to Notre Dame and Supers. He didn't like that. He brought it back up, and he talked about how success is defined in multiple different ways, and you kind of make your own definition about that. And it was just really powerful what he had to say. Yeah,
no, it was. And, yeah, I mean, he said a lot of things I think were certainly intelligent or at least thought-provoking. I think just the thing that, to me, is still in the moment, I didn't want to go back and listen to it, but the thing that stands out is just how, passionate. He was yelling. Yeah. He was yelling in the press conference room about it, and it was like a 7-minute opening statement. He talked about the 2022 team. He talked about, an instance last year after winning the game in Clemson, crying in the bathroom, last year, we talked about so many times about how the season maybe wasn't the most fun, how the team didn't have a whole lot of camaraderie until the middle of the year. He talked about how that was goal number one going into this year, was wanting to show up at the ballpark every day and being excited. And you can just tell. I mean, he's talked about it a handful of times this season, so that part wasn't anything new necessarily. But he really loves this team, and he loves the guys on this team, and you can tell it means a lot to him. And he was very defensive of them. Talked about success, about how that is how he measures success for himself personally, maybe not the team, and then also kind of defended the 2022 team and thought that was a failure. I think he had the line of, so what, they didn't go to Omaha, you might have hated them, but they made you talk about college baseball. So,
and he shouted out Jared Dickey for hitting 380 after taking a year off baseball, and what he was able to do, he's like, that's success.
Yeah.
And also, what I thought was arguably the best part of it all,
good point,
talking about the Evansville center fielder having to get stitches, bum shoulder after crashing into the wall Friday to be able to play today. He was like, that's success.
Yeah, he's like, I don't know what the guy's hitting. I don't care. Like, he'll be able to come back, and his teammates, will always think of him as being a tough SOB essentially. Yep. So, yeah, you're right. It was some powerful examples. The Dickey one was really, really a really good point, and especially when you talk about what Jared Dickey in that 2022 season fought through a lot of injuries to be back and be an important part of that team. So. He said a lot of thought-provoking things, and certainly I think definitely the most intense we've seen Tony Vitello, and I definitely think maybe his best non-comedic press moment. He's had a lot of good comedic press conference moments, but from talking about some real stuff, some deep stuff, that was it.
Yeah, he's one of the better college baseball head coaches to at least cover from our standpoint. He makes our job easy with how passionate he is and how funny he can be, but tonight, that side of him I think is the most admirable side of him, and also getting emotional about Cal Stark. I noticed he brought up last night, probably should have pinch hit Dalton Bargo for Cal Stark in that moment. I think he was probably meaning Cal Stark in that moment. He's like,
yeah, go ahead.
B is like, but Cal's my guy. And then you could see the tears coming to his eyes. That just shows the love he has for this team.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, there's just so many moments. He talked about another thing, the success of being in Omaha on Father's Day. He talks about, obviously, all the time about the impact his dad, who was a high school baseball coach and soccer coach at that, has had on him. So, and it's been cool. I talked to you about it before the series or on Friday. Tony's dad being around a lot during the postseason and being at practice and stuff, and it's cool. And then Tony Vitello talks about Tennessee baseball being a family all the time, all the in-house hires he's made, all the coaches, the graduate assistants they've had that has played for him. I mean, Bonfield's like the one guy that didn't play at Tennessee, and he played for him at Arkansas. Yeah. And that's just another example of it with his actual family, his dad being very active, being around this team.
Well, Tennessee's headed to Omaha, as I mentioned, third time in the last 4 years. They get it done here Sunday night in Lindsey Nelson Stadium against Evansville. Before we wrap, Ryan, anything you want to
add? I guess it's a little bit on Omaha. It's going to be the ACC Invitational on Tennessee's side of the bracket. They'll get Florida State in the first game, North Carolina. Link Jarrett, North Carolina, and Virginia, the other two teams on Tennessee's side of the bracket, and a possibility it could be 4 SEC, 4 ACC. Florida's punched their ticket on the other side of the bracket. Georgia, North Carolina State play game 3 tomorrow. Last I saw, A&M had taken a late lead on Oregon in game 2.
They were up 15-9. They opened it up.
Yeah, so they're there, and who else am I missing? Kentucky, who was closer game, but they were also up late in that game the last time I saw.
Yeah, it feels like it's a likelihood it's going to be all SEC and ACC. Well, we're going to get out of here. I got to go take a picture with the dudes at the tent because, Ryan, this is the last game in this current version of Lindsey Nelson Stadium. Also to take that in, we're going to have a new press box next year. Yep. Thank God for that. It's, multiple renovations going to be done on the top of this thing. It's going to look completely different next time we're here.
Yeah, it's going to look way, way different. And I kind of almost forgotten about some of the renderings until some of them, I think they must have showed some on the broadcast yesterday, and I saw some on Twitter. And I was already excited about it, but it got me fired up. They look awesome, and it's been cool. We're sitting here staring at all the stuff they put in last offseason in Phase 1. I guess the big Phase 1. They've added porches every single year and all that good stuff. But you talk about Tennessee going to Omaha for the third time in 4 years. We're looking at all the stuff that's come from that and what Tony Vitello's built here.
Build it, now come.
That's exactly right.
12-1, Tennessee gets it done and leaves no doubt they're headed back to the College World Series. For Ryan Schumpert, I'm Jack Foster. We'll see you next time.